Welcome.
Hey,
Are we live? Awesome. Sweet. Welcome to the CoinSec Podcast. I think we're live. We are live. Yes. Awesome.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. And if you had jumped into our conversation about 5 minutes ago, it was pretty funny, but that didn't luckily make it to the live stream here.
Not crypto
Welcome,
related.
guys.
What is this, episode 42?
42, yeah.
It's the life, the universe, and everything. The answer.
That's right. That's the answer. So today we've got Corey. What's going on, man?
Oh, I'm here in Portland, but I'm in an Airbnb, so I don't actually have a home still.
Oh,
Which
Portland?
Did you lose out on the market or what?
I only, you guys heard about that DAOMaker thing. I was the whale that, I'm the whale. I should get a shirt that says I was the whale that got hacked. And then that explains my lack of Bitcoin, Ferraris and Lambos and etc. But no, I just, I'm only living in places that have land in the name. So I did Cleveland. Now I'm doing Portland. And I think the only one I can do is like Graceland.
No, Lakeland. Come to Lakeland.
Lakeland. Oh, yeah,
Lakeland.
You're right.
Yeah, there you go.
I could do Florida. All right, that's good. That opens up my options.
There you go. Awesome. And then Steve, what's going on, man?
Hey, doing good, living the dream, reading about all these hacks, wondering how these people are doing these things, and excited to learn more about them. So looking forward to this show.
This what's funny though is this week is actually like a relatively low news week, comparatively for the last like 3 episodes.
Right.
If you go by dollar amount of money stolen, it's a
that's maybe we should start rating episodes based on dollars stolen.
only millions of dollars were stolen this week.
Yeah,
Right,
only a few. Like it wasn't 600, so like this is not going to be a good episode.
Yeah, it's hundreds of millions is now the bar for like a big hack apparently. Which is kind of crazy in the crypto world if you think about it. I guess it's the downside of converting everything into USD.
Yep. And then we've got Ryan. What's going on, man?
Hey. I'm playing internet roulette here today, but
that's a dangerous game, man. That's a dangerous game. Not to be confused with like chat roulette or.
He's playing that too. He's just not doing it on camera.
No.
Awesome. So so I guess let's jump into the news. Ryan, are you gonna share the news today? Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Cool. That works. All right, so first up we've got DAOMaker, which we talked about them a couple weeks ago, back in the news again this week. And so this is another hack. This one is kind of interesting. So apparently DAOMaker, their smart contract, they left the init function vulnerable, which allowed an attacker to reinitialize 4 token contracts with malicious data. So, Steve and I were talking a little bit before about like what this actually means. And so from my understanding, like, when it comes to creating a smart contract, you can have a constructor function that is the initial the function that you would utilize when publishing a new contract to the blockchain to give it some data. So instead of going and actually hard coding, values like addresses or the token size, a lot of times you can have these constructor functions that you can't call later on, but when you actually publish and deploy the contract, you would call these constructor functions with pieces of data so that it can actually utilize those when it's deployed. So how was somebody able to exploit the init functions on these particular contracts? And the thing that I'm kind of assuming here happened is that the init functions were for other contracts that were being created by DAOMaker. So within the initial DAOMaker contract, they likely had an init function that constructed these other contracts, and leaving it unprotected, an attacker was able to call those. So what are your thoughts on that, guys?
Didn't someone, is it true that the source code for the init function isn't public? Or is that?
Yeah, so I think the DAOMaker contract itself isn't public. And so this is something that is actually kind of an interesting topic of debate, right? So this is something that
the insider flag.
Yeah,
The
right.
insider,
Yeah.
everyone's like insider, right? It's like the classic crypto thing. It's always an insider, but this time.
Yeah, so the thing is like in a lot of cases, it's recommended to publish your code and verify it on sites like EtherCN. And the reason is for a few different things, right? So like the main thing is, so your customers, the people that are using your contract, can have visibility into the code, right? It's like, so they can go look at it and say, oh yeah, there's no backdoors here. We're not going to just have a rug pull happen. That tends to be one of the higher reasons why people like to have code public, right? So they can kind of go and trust the contracts that they're, trusting millions of dollars to. So yeah, I mean, like
source.
So does the attacker then have to decompile the bytecode or something like that to find the vulnerability, or how do we know? Like,
so that's
that point two.
I think to be seen, right? Like, so yeah, point two would be like, how did they figure that out, right? Like, did they have some sort of insider knowledge, as Corey kind of alluded to? Were they able to just like, through reverse engineering figure it out? That's another thing.
Sure.
I was thinking, oh, go ahead.
No, so there some of the comments on this was that so even though the source code wasn't public, that and you have to have deep technical knowledge to find this type of vulnerability, maybe, that this wasn't an overall technical attack. Like, this could have been done in one attacker's contract. It was done over many. They also used 1 inch for a swap, which doesn't really make sense because that wouldn't be you'd be able to see that and track it. But they did fund from Tornado Networks, so they attempted to be somewhat anonymous from the beginning. So just not sure what the technical level of the attacker was in this case. It seems like it took a mix of knowledge, right? Having some deep knowledge of how this thing in the init function works, or did they stumble upon it by chance, right?
Yeah, it makes me kind of wonder, like of projects out there that don't have their source code published. What if you were able to just create like kind of like a brute force list of function names, right? And just go through, all these, public contracts that haven't actually verified their source code, and just kind of try to enumerate, right? Like similar to like what we do with like user enumeration for password attacks. On typical engagements, right? Like, it's kind of like a trial and error kind of thing where potentially you might be able to discover functions that are there just purely by brute forcing them.
Yeah, it sounds like something that's feasible, if not already being done.
Yeah, the another thing that sort of came out of this is that the people, and this is normal, this is par for the course for hacks and crypto hacks especially, but people are kind of like investigating their security or like their audits, right? And so one tweet said that they had audits from 3 different firms, which you can see at their, like, they have an audit page on their website, but 2 of the audits are for unrelated contracts, and the third one is a dead link. But it does sort of bring into, so right, it's like, oh, well, what scope did you have tested to draw a corollary to like the network security space? But also, it brings into question, if they are having firms audit this, are they vetting the firms? Could the firms potentially be, provided with the source code, and maybe that's the source of some, I guess you could call it proprietary information about the contracts. But
sure. So like, if they gave this to, auditing company X, and somebody from that team then knew about the init function, right? So is that a plausible attack path? And I think
right, or like someone's posing as a fake auditing firm or something. You know what I mean? Like, either an insider from the auditing firm, decided to get out of the game, or because I don't know. I mean,
that's an interesting.
Yeah, what is the space like? I mean, I assume these companies aren't hauling gold bricks out the back door like auditing firms, right? I mean, they're not charging like $300 an hour, are they? Or is it like really lucrative? Because it's kind of interesting.
I saw somebody like a week ago. They tweeted that they got quoted $100,000 for 400 lines of code review. So I mean,
so then at that price, you'd hope that they are not selling your information, right? Or are leaking it, or
Well, so another thing to kind of consider is like you mentioned, like, all right, so what if you had like kind of a rogue firm or whatever, like a fake auditing firm? Like, sure, like that's a possibility. But what about the other end of the spectrum, right? Like, what about like hiring a firm to audit somebody else's code. So one of the things is that a lot of these projects are publicly available, right?
Mm.
And the source code is publicly available. So there's nothing really to prevent somebody from taking that code, saying it's their own, hiring a company to audit it, and then getting the vulnerabilities and then using those vulnerabilities.
Sure, just like copy the contract and say it's yours.
Yeah, because they clone projects all the time. This is one of the things in the space is that contracts get copied, right? So there's definitely potential there for somebody to copy some code and then have an auditing firm audit it, find vulnerabilities, and what they. I guess it really comes down to like verifying who's hiring you, right?
Sure, and I think something to think about is attackers. We typically go after people with privilege, right? So if you are a developer on the contract, you're possibly a target of somebody looking to exploit your ecosystem in some fashion or another, and that could be through phishing emails, trying to scam you out of, like Bo said, doing some kind of contract analysis and things like that. So it really opens up the possibilities of the potential attack vectors to get to like the source code, right? Other than it just being leaked online or whatever. Yeah.
Free audit. All you got to do is submit all your source code to
yeah, right. Here, we'll just create an online portal,
.ru.
Submit your source code, it'll scan it and give you a result.
Dude,
we won't take advantage of that at all.
It's like the password evaluator, right? It's like type in your password, we'll tell you how good it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you kind of wonder, like what do you ever think we'll get to a point where the community trusts projects enough to not require source code to be publicly available?
I would say I think it will happen. I think it will happen because of features or because of gains, or it won't be a security consideration. It'll be like it's not public source code, but their returns are really good, or there'll be another feature that people are willing to move for. Or they don't even check. I mean, honestly, if you just put a little checkbox that says VeriSign secure and say that it was audited, does anyone really go on GitHub and be like, oh, but there's a line 3000 is different in it call than the real code? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the one stealing $5 million.
Yeah, exactly. How many people are even technically skilled enough to go and audit the code from like an end user perspective, right? How many people that are using these exchanges can actually read smart contracts, right? Like, or can read even just source code? Like, I don't know. I mean, my guess would be not a huge percentage, but you never know. I mean, it is crypto, which is a little bit different, but.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the next story. So the next one is kind of like a relatively large issue happening within the Ethereum ecosystem. Not just Ethereum, other tokens have this problem too, or other coins, is around MEV. So the Miner Extractable Value and the protections of that. So Miner Extractable Value, if you haven't heard of this, basically this is the concept around how miners can choose priority for the transactions they mine. And this is something that is it's there because of gas fees, right? So if I pay a higher gas fee than Steve, my transaction will be mined before him. And this is, miners are incentivized to mine these transactions with higher fees because they get paid more, right, for mining the ones that are that pay higher gas fees. And this is something that is basically directed towards like the front running type of attacks and the styles of attacks where you try to submit a transaction to override somebody else's transaction. So in the event that somebody was watching the mempool, right, and they decided to take somebody's transaction that they had submitted and try to submit the same thing prior to them, all they have to do is pay a higher gas fee. So so there was an NFT issue. This has been something that a lot of like minting NFTs have had issues with in the recent past, where going through the minting process, typically you try to limit how many somebody can mint. They might prevent them from minting more than 10 or 20 or whatever, so that you give a higher chance for other people to mint some as well. But the sevens NFT was one that was kind of hit with this issue recently, where they had a collection of 7,000 unique NFTs, and somebody would manage to mint 1,000 of them, which caused some issues, right? So I guess I don't know. What do you guys think about like this issue? Like, what do you think about?
This one is a slightly different because it required that you had protection tokens staked, which this attacker did. Staked basically protection tokens, which allowed their gas fees to remain low, but at the same time took priority over the other ones, which allowed them to mint 1,000 NFTs. So kind of a big thing, especially if you're into NFTs, right? Yeah. You don't want to be, I guess in this case, this person's essentially stealing, right? Stealing NFTs from other users, or is this minting fresh ones? Are they going to be worth anything because they're minting new ones instead of ones that are already there? I don't know.
Well, no. So I think that think of it like the first to get to it gets some, right? It's not like they're for sale in the context that they're just like items, right? Like, so when you mint something, it's like you are actually creating the new, yeah. So the fact that they're minting them, they're probably minting them for the same price, right? Like it's generally like either free or like a static price for that minting process. And so the more you have, the more you can go and sell for higher value, right?
Right. My point being, who's going to buy fake minted NFT?
Oh, I don't think they're fake, though. I don't think they're fake.
Well, no, I mean, the person legitimately minted them, but I mean, now it's an attacker-owned NFT, right? So do you know?
Well, look at like CryptoPunks, right? And a CryptoPunk is what worth? I think the floor is what, 100 grand easy or something for a CryptoPunk at this point. So imagine like having that ability to mint multiple of that particular NFT at the start, right? Like you don't know if it's going to blow up or not, right? Like, but potentially if like this sevens NFT blew up, right? Like if it became really big, then that enables you to sell more at a higher value.
Sure. It's like it messes with the supply, right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like it's like anytime you're making a limited number of things, if a car company is going to make 700 of a car, and then like someone somehow steals 100 of those, you know what I mean? It's like, whoa, the other values go up, or the person has, like you said, more control over the market than anyone should have.
Well, and the other thing too is it doesn't necessarily like get marked as like stolen, right? Like you wouldn't be able to tell a difference between a minted NFT by somebody who minted 1,000 of them and somebody who just minted like 20, right? Like it's still minted using the same process. They just happen to all be in the same wallet.
So another question I have is, is this MEV thing like a good idea? Like, is this like ability for miners to choose priority transactions? Is that a good idea? Does BNB have it? Do other chains have it? Or is it like, I know BNB is not, but like, I don't know. I mean, is it good? I feel like it's kind of a controversial feature to have in general. Yeah,
and the other big problem is that like when these things kind of happen, when like minting issues or whenever there's a large incentive to pay higher gas fees, it makes the gas fees go sky high. So that's like one of the reasons like you see like every once in a while gas fees are just insane. It's usually because there's like a minting process for whatever thing. Like this happened with the Stoner Cats a couple months ago too. So with that one, like everyone was trying to pay really high gas fees so they could actually be one of the first ones to own these. So like whenever the minting process started, they're all just trying to pay higher gas fees so that they can actually mint these tokens, right? And the problem is though with this is a few reasons, right? Like, or a few things. So you have people paying higher gas fees, which makes the gas fees go higher. So everyone else's transactions is trying to actually transact anything, like normal just person-to-person transactions, have to pay a lot more, right? Like, so that's one problem. The second thing is the other people that are trying to mint tokens, if they don't pay a higher gas fee, they're going to waste gas. So they're literally paying gas still trying to mint stuff, but ultimately not paying high enough to actually obtain an NFT. So there's a lot of people that lose money just trying to mint NFTs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess the whole thing is kind of the gas discussion, right? Should you be allowed to, prioritize your transaction by spending more money? I mean, it's kind of the whole controversy of Ethereum in general, right? It's like the gas fees are so high. You do a smart contract in Ethereum, you'd have to make thousands of dollars just to cut, the gas fees. I don't know. It's just an interesting discussion about like, should there be a way to be like, no, I'm first because I have more money. Like, I get how it makes sense from like a supply and demand perspective, but it is kind of a weird feature to implement. And I guess it's like, did they design it properly to deal with like the NFTs? It seems like it's kind of a little bit not great. I mean, I guess Ethereum 2.0 is probably going to yank it all. But
so gas is there to help prevent denial of service attacks, and to prevent smart contracts from just looping endlessly, right? So like, if I were to be an attacker and gas wasn't a thing, or if it was something that was relatively cheap, then I could create a contract that just loops endlessly, right? And causes congestion in the network. Right. So like there being a gas limit and gas prices help kind of prevent that, because with smart contracts, literally every single op code that happens, every single thing has a price, a gas price. So if you have a function that adds, 2 numbers, like that's a gas price. If you have a function that sends a transaction, that's a specific gas price. Like there's all these different gas prices associated with every single thing in a contract, and mainly to prevent a lot of those attacks from happening.
I guess it's probably also like a problem where the blockchain speed is a little bit slow right now with Ethereum. So people are like putting in crazy numbers just so that they can see, that fast mint, versus like hopefully in the future when the transaction speed is faster, no one needs to put in 1,000 GUI or whatever to get a transaction run quickly.
Well, yeah, and that's why a lot of people and investors are moving to these alternate chains, right? So we see like Avalanche, and which is one that's pretty heavy right now because you can transfer your dApps over pretty easily. So a lot of people are migrating to those other chains, and you can even look at the prices of these coins today, and you can see the migration, I think, because other chains, while Bitcoin and ETH might dip, you can see those increases in the others where people are migrating. So yeah, which brings a whole new security issue, right? If they're copying basically what's going on in the main chains, do those like the last exploit that Bo had against his node, refactor over to those other chains as well, right? So,
well, we've already talked about a lot of cross-chain attacks, right? When you start saying like, oh, we're ERC20 compliant on the BNB chain, it's like, okay, well, what black magic did you have to do to make it just copy and paste, right? There's always unintended consequences when you're dealing with that kind of like compatibility layer.
Yep. Yeah, and so like the article that goes kind of along with this topic, right, the MEV topic, the reason I kind of stuck it in there is because I saw that there's actually a few different tokens that are trying to solve this problem, right? They're trying to solve this front running kind of problem. So one example is Eden. It's a priority transaction network that protects traders from front running, aligns incentives for block producers, and redistributes miner extractable value. So it says that this means that Eden holders who stake their tokens can benefit from priority transaction processing. So this makes me wonder, like, I mean, obviously, like I need to research it more, but like how is just holding an Eden token making it so that you have priority? Like that's my question.
Right. Yeah. I'm wondering if it was similar to 1inch tokens, Chi or Chai token, where you could save on gas, if it's similar to that or not.
Yeah, so there's definitely some projects out there trying to solve this problem. And actually, there was a conference, I think it was an ETH Global conference a few months back, where this was like the main thing they talked about when they started talking about like ETH 2.0 and like changes to the Ethereum network. I saw like there's probably a good 10 talks just about MEV. So it's definitely something they're working on. Will be interesting to see where it goes from here. Alrighty, moving on. So next up, we have an article about Russian pyramid scheme netted over 1.5 billion in Bitcoin throughout Eastern Europe, says Chainalysis.
Oh man, this reminds me of Bitcoin.
Oh man, I saw somebody post one of those, like the GIF from that in the webcast I did yesterday. I was dying. Yeah, BitConnect.
Yeah. So again, another pyramid scheme, right? This one by Finico, which I guess is the group or organizer of this, managed to gather over 1.5 billion in Bitcoin. I think the interesting point to this, or part of this, is that it was in over 800,000 separate deposits. So it's a lot of people contributing, right? I'm wondering kind of what the minimum was that you had to pay in order to become part of this pyramid scheme.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising when you think about it. Everyone has the FOMO with, or at least nerds, they have the FOMO with crypto, right? They have the, oh man, someone made $1 million. I want to make $1 million. Oh, but I can send money to this guy on Telegram, and he can pay me back in a month. He can double my money or whatever, right? I think the other interesting thing about this that I wanted to talk about is the whole, like, the creator's been arrested, but they're still like advertising and running, right? It's like, it's hard to cut the head off of a crypto dragon or whatever you want to call it, right? Like you've got like all these wallets. Like, it's just hard to be like, all right, you're shut down. You know what I mean? Like, it's
remove one head, 8 more appear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's kind of synonymous with how Silk Road went too. They removed the creator of Silk Road, but then other marketplaces popped up in its place.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to think about the amount of money involved in that stuff, and it's going to happen, right? Going to have clones.
Yeah, the market demands it. I guess there's probably always a demand for a pyramid scheme because people are always trying to look for something that they can get rich quick on, right? Without it's zero risk, double my money in 2 weeks, that kind of thing. So,
and it says, I think most of this was in Eastern Europe, which I think they specifically said Russian and Ukrainian in here. Yeah. Which is interesting because Ukraine is putting in some legislation. We don't have this on our show notes, but they actually this week put in some legislation to approve Bitcoin as a currency. So maybe we'll see another one here soon.
Yeah, hopefully the government has some kind of insurance policy or something if they're going to actually do that, right? To help people. It's an interesting like knowledge gap where you have, okay, what's Bitcoin? Oh, well, some guy on Telegram just told me he can give me Bitcoin. Is that normal? Because no one knows, like, people have a concept of what, national banks or whatever should be doing. Like, but it's interesting. I mean, pyramid schemes are always going to work because there's always going to be people that are looking for a get rich quick or a high gain. Plus you see some of the real numbers in crypto, and the numbers, like, it's hard to do like a spot check. Like, is 1,000% APR normal? Is it not? Like in US dollars, obviously that's got to be BS. We know you can't make more than like 10% or 15% on the stock market long term. But with crypto, can you? It's hard.
You can until somebody pulls that rug out from under you.
You can until, yeah, exactly.
All right, what's the next one? Bilixi hack update.
Oh yeah, that was from. So we talked about that, I think, last week a little bit. So the cryptocurrency exchange Bilaxi did confirm the major hacking incident on its platform, and loss of funds from the attack on the ERC20 hot wallet. So I think we showed some of those tokens and stuff last week. But they've actually come out and I think put something on their main website at Bilaxi.com. Basically says, hey, give us a few weeks and we'll see what happens. So
what?
They do acknowledge they suffered heavy losses and things like that. So I don't know. It doesn't really look like they're going to come back from this. Maybe this is another Cryptopia, right?
Oh, it's not good.
I remember, after Cryptopia, they updated their website, and I
also like how it's
all right. Everything I had there is gone.
Yeah, you and a lot of other people. Unfortunately.
So it does say a serious hack and abnormal transactions. If you click on that link, click on the address. If you click on the Ryan, the actual Bilaxi.com.
Oh yeah, so it's just a note. Oh man.
Yeah, so it's just a note, but there's a link. Like if you're following along and you want to go see like what the hack was, there's an actual Etherscan address. And here in a minute, I'm going to go over kind of like a quick course on tracking some things on the chain. And this is something you could take from that and actually look at it and see like where the stuff goes. So if you click on that, Ryan, click on the address there. Yeah, you can scroll down and we can see the actual interactions with the contract from the attacker. So you can see swap tokens, swapped exact token. So if you follow along, and they do you the honors of labeling the from address. So you can see fake phishing 4940. So one of the ones that I'm doing today will be covering a different fake phishing. So I don't know why they use fake phishing as the username for the froms, but.
You know, it's kind of interesting thought here is, you know, like in their post, they mention in the coming days, we will jointly work with professional authoritative security institutions to make thoroughly system security audit and investigation. So,
yeah.
And then further comprehensively sort out platform assets, storage solutions, report the hack case to local police agency. So I'm wondering, like, maybe Steve, maybe you have more experience with this than I have, but like, what do local police agencies know about tracking?
In my experience, and I've taught some law enforcement about tracking cryptocurrencies, is that the local authorities don't have the resources really to do that. That's why if it happens, we see like chain analysis being hired to analyze the chains and stuff like that. But that's usually coming from some sort of federal law enforcement agency, right? Typically not your local law enforcement. So
well, also it's in the Republic of the Seychelles or Seychelles or whatever.
Right. So
it's in the Republic of, we probably have like 3 police people in there, mostly for drunk people, not for cryptocurrency fraud.
right.
Yeah,
exactly. So,
yeah, it's just interesting to think, like, I mean, in this case, you know, it's an exchange, like a centralized exchange with, you know, they have their own hot wallet. So there's something directly to say, hey, we were hacked. So there was a criminal activity that hacked this hot wallet. I wonder how that kind of paradigm shifts whenever you start looking at trying to track smart contract hacks, right? Like,
right. So
I mean, the law enforcement just say like, it's a feature, it's in the code, right?
That code is distributed around the globe. It's not like we can come to your office and say, hey, let's take control of this, right? And
there's a corollary. Yeah, there's a corollary you can draw between you stole my keys. Like you could do that in real life, right? How'd you steal my car? Well, you stole my keys. It's for a wallet, it makes sense. But when you're talking about, okay, the init function was unprotected. Well, is that your negligence, or is that, you know what I mean? Like it'll be interesting.
Well, yeah, I actually saw there's a post I saw a couple of days ago that was like talking about how, you know, a lot of people talk about code is law. Like it's a very common phrase in this world, that, you know, code is law. Like that means like if the code says that, you know, this is supposed to happen, it can happen, right? And so finding those vulnerabilities in the code that is law, like how does that translate to a criminal activity if there is literally a function that allowed you to take everything? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It just makes you wonder like how law enforcement sees that. I don't think we've seen a whole lot of like response on that.
I would not expect to get your money back.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly.
Even if there was a conviction or some law enforcement activity, the money is so long gone with all the swaps and, you know, magical things you can do and mixers and all that stuff. It's going to be, yeah.
I'm not advocating to go hack smart contracts by any means, by the way. Just because honestly,
but you
like,
probably won't get in trouble. Probably.
Yeah, but you might get hunted down by other people that are much scarier.
Whales, you might have a Moby Dick scenario where you get hunted down by a whale, but you will not have issues from, you know, local.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the next one. So we've got Popsicle makes first repayment. So
you won't get your money back. Wait, no, sorry.
First repayment, so of multiple, obviously. We've seen other places, like remember when NiceHash was hacked? They did payments out to the miners over time, kind of like this as well.
It is interesting that it says they got the loan to pay it. Like they took out a loan to repay. I don't know. That's
flash loan repayment, maybe. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good progress, right? Cool.
Yeah. So, did the funds come from insurance contract then that they're repaying from?
It says Iron Bank contract, so that sounds along those lines.
It is also weird that they're saying Iron Bank loan for 1 million. Also, it says we're repaying 18 million.
Maybe that's the total that they're shooting for.
Huh. I guess you're glad if you had your money stolen. Is this kind of the standard now that I guess you have to buy back your loyalty with the cash?
Yeah. I mean, if you want people to use your, your product at the end of the day, I mean, you don't want to just leave them hanging.
You're just like, please come back. We'll give you your money back. It was already yours.
Well, yeah. I mean, so that that kind of happened with the Poly network too, right? Like they had the $600 million stolen. It was returned. And then I think they've been slowly kind of paying that back.
Yeah, it's got to be interesting to track, right? Who gets what back? It's all in the contract, so I'm sure you can just write some code to do it. But I'd like to see that in action. It's probably pretty cool.
I would say it's also interesting to see how the reputational. I mean, we know in the consumer space, people don't give a crap, right? People were shopping at Target the day after they got hacked. They're still shopping at Target. Like no one cares. It will be interesting to see in the crypto space if the companies that experience a major security incident like Poly or someone else end up losing credibility and losing like market share, or if people just don't care and they're like, well, I already had my money there. So, maybe lightning doesn't strike twice. It's like people use all kinds of logic to justify things, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, we just talked about the MEV protection tokens, right? And how those actually pumped after the exploit. So, no, all news is good news. Any news
in that case, but in that case, it was pumping because those are the thing that would help protect against that hack, right? Mm-hmm. So like that specific one was that the NFT, minting process was hacked. And those tokens were allegedly supposed to help prevent against that. So,
right. Got it.
All right, moving on. So, Steve, did you throw this one in here, the TokenSniffer?
Yeah, I just thought this was an interesting page. I'm not sure really who creates this or anything like that. So I'm not shilling this, but if you're into contract security and scams and hacks, this is a pretty cool site where you can look at the trending tokens. You can look at the newest tokens that are being released and some of those that have been scam or hacked. So if you click on the latest scam, click on ZoneCoin.
ZoneCoin.
So to pull up ZoneCoin, and it shows you that there's a bug in the contract up there at the top, evidence of a bug, hack, or scam. And it'll tell you why below that as well. It even analyzes like the holder analysis, whether or not the contract owner contains a substantial amount of tokens like that, which could have an impact on the token price. So all kinds of cool things. So you can see if the contract has been cloned and like where it came from.
And so this is automated?
It says it's automated. I don't know if somebody is looking at these first and being like, ooh, I can exploit that first, and then doing it and then filtering it out to the rest of us. But
awesome. This is pretty sweet.
Yeah, and it does multiple chains, right? So BSC, Ethereum, Polygon, Phantom, Optimism, and KCC. Looks like to date, 44,788 scams and hacks. So what their determination of a scam or a hack is, I'm not quite sure. But looking through a couple of these, it's just interesting to see the ones that are cloned. And, it could be somebody out there just playing around, learning, right? It might not be an actual scam or a hack, but there's a test net for that, right?
That's a good point. Very cool.
Mm-hmm. It also makes me wonder how many of these are honeypots, right? Looking, have some kind of a scam backdoor in there and just looking for people to invest in their pool and then back out. Same rogue style. But yeah, uses your own risk and do your own research. So just a neat site.
Awesome. All right, what's next? Non-security. Mastercard acquires CipherTrace.
Right. So So Mastercard came out and said they're going to acquire crypto tracing firm CipherTrace. Details of the acquisition were not disclosed. This was as of yesterday. So this is interesting because we see large organizations and now financial organizations like Mastercard buying into blockchain securities, right? So this is CipherTrace was a firm that scans for illicit transactions on the chains, and they can do this over multiple chains. So similar to, I think, what chain analysis does, allowing you to analyze transactions on the chain. So maybe taking away CipherTrace from a public, maybe they're going to privatize this maybe and kind of bring that stuff in-house, or are they going to continue to sell the service? Kind of interests me if they're going to remove the competition with chain analysis, right?
Yeah, so the MasterCard president in that post said that with the rapid growth of the digital asset ecosystem comes the need to ensure it is trusted and safe. Our aim is to build upon the complementary capabilities of MasterCard and CipherTrace to do just this. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yeah, so...
And that's probably something I would assume if you're going to offer some kind of crypto service, right? You're going to say like secured by CipherTrace, or you're going to want some kind of tag on there. So maybe they're buying this for part of that to help secure their ecosystem that they're doing, whatever that may be.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. Yeah, I mean, I guess it'll be kind of interesting to see where that goes, right? I mean, is MasterCard, like you said, going to just be offering like IR kind of services, or are they planning on implementing more crypto products and then using that as kind of leverage to say, hey, we have one of the leading firms out here that does like crypto investigations to help with this. And that makes me wonder too, like on the investigation side. So like if they can run investigations through CipherTrace, does that give them more leverage to protect people that are using cryptocurrencies that they are, managing?
More leverage to protect them, maybe to detect and respond to incidents, right? But being able to scan the blockchain isn't going to prevent anything as far as I know. But I'm sure this will provide a lot of intelligence for them as well to see where transactions are taking place, what decentralized exchanges are being used, and probably where they can market their products, right? So having the kind of intelligence that something like CipherTrace can pull from public blockchains is probably immensely profitable for them in the long run. And it does say that they've been ramping up their crypto efforts for working with USDC, so USD coin, to bridge the crypto-using buyers and fiat-loving merchants, or cash-loving merchants, it says. So I think it's cool. I've seen a lot of talk in places that have some kind of cryptocurrency card. Maybe you get some kind of crypto rewards in and things like that. So I think this is kind of a step towards that for them, and maybe just more acceptance of cryptocurrency in general.
Very cool. All right, moving on to the how-to section.
How to?
So, how to track it. Hey, speaking of tracking.
Yeah, right. Good segue. So I wanted to show just kind of an overview of some services and kind of go over a quick hack that happened earlier, I think, in this year. So let me make sure I have the right screen shared here. Should be the BitQuery screen, right? So again, I have no affiliation with BitQuery, but BitQuery is a kind of like an analysis tool. I would say it's akin to maybe a lightweight chain analysis or something like that, to where you can query the blockchain. You can even do some visualizations. You can do some off-chain data. You can read what's happening on the chains. So they do a great job up here of splitting this out over different explorers for different coins, different smart contract platforms. So you can break it out and see which. So if you wanted to go and do some research on Solana and say, well, let's go look at this Solana exploit or something, you can do so. And we'll get to the graphs part. I think that's the kind of the meat and potatoes of what this does. And this also shows some stats, so you can go in and see the transaction costs and things like that, or counts. And I think eventually you can even go into like Ethereum. You can see the gas and analytics, how much gas is costing, the transactions, all kinds of great stuff. And we'll get into that. So I wanted to cover a real world scenario. So basically, if you remember on Binance Smart Chain, there was Meerkat Finance. Meerkat Finance was hacked in the tune of 17.6 million in BNB. And as I stated earlier, the explorers label these as like fake phishing. So we see fake phishing 17. This is actually a link to the BSC scan of this attacker's address. So that brings us here. And that shows us, it actually tells us, BSC scan tells us this is a phish or a hack. So if you're going to interact with a contract, if you're going to interact with some kind of service, do your research, do your due diligence, and get the contract information. Either come in etherscan.io or bscscan.com, whichever explorer you need to do for whatever network you're on, and see if it's labeled as anything. You can go look at the transactions, see when the last transactions were. So this one, 181 days ago. So this wasn't a recent hack. This was a while ago. But again, we can kind of go over and look at what this did. We can see the internal transactions. So which tokens were transferred. This should say BNB as well. Some Monerium, Binance Peg BUSD. So a lot of that. But we'll break into this a little bit more. So bscscan.com for Binance Smart Chain. That's what we're looking at here. And then if we go to BitQuery, you can actually take that address. If you copy that up there, we can go to BitQuery, paste that in there, and hit the search, and it'll pull up the address. So we can see the different currencies that were sent and received to and from this address. BNB, MI, BNB, BUSD, Meerkat, MEV. We can see the balance based on currency. So that's pretty cool. It breaks down. If you noticed especially even ERC20 tokens and BEP20 tokens for Binance Smart Chain, you can hold more tokens than just one. So like Bitcoin, you've got your Bitcoin wallet, right? It has Bitcoin in it. With BNB or Ethereum, you can have multiple tokens in one wallet. So that's kind of what this is showing here. Tells you the inbound, outbound by dates, even the smart contract calls. So when and what calls were made to smart contracts. And this is kind of where I'm going with this. This is the cool part about BitQuery. And you can also see this on the explorers as well. It just takes a little bit more effort. So let's go into the transactions that happened with this address. So we can see a little bit on when this was done, March 21st or March 2021. The gas spent for the transactions, receiver, and then the transaction hash. So you can see the more the gas cost over here, probably the more tokens were transferred. If you wanted to, you could click on the specific block and go to that block and see all the transactions. You can go on to the specific receiver, who received the transaction. And we'll see those a little bit more in detail when we get to the money flow. So we can see inbound. So who funded this account? When was it funded? Things like that. So we can go back, total of 18 rows. We can see that on March 3rd of 2021, this was initially funded 0.5 BNB. And we can see, you could see where that came from if you wanted to, if that came from an exchange or something like that, a centralized exchange, you could potentially track that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Outflow, what has been sent from this account. So we can see the different currencies here, BNB, Binance pegged USD, that's BUSD, and the amounts that are being sent. So quite a bit, 5,000 BNB, 1 million BUSD here, 1 million BUSD here. So a lot of money in separate transfers. We can see what contract calls were made. So this is really cool for starting to track what exactly happened and what
really cool.
What's the timeline that it happened. So we can see that this address initialized contract, created a contract, swapped some tokens, deposited, transfer ownership. So that's pretty interesting. Wonder what happened there. We could actually go into that and see the transaction that happened. Let's see which transaction. Yeah. So let's do that. If we click on transfer ownership, so we can see the sender and the receiver. We can see the transfers that happened, any DEX trades, which calls, which smart contract it was interacting with. So you can kind of go down the line.
Can you on the calls there?
Yeah.
Can you actually see like the parameters that were specified for the transfer ownership? Like, I wonder, maybe it's on the events tab.
I think it's under the events tab. Yeah. So transfer ownership,
transferred.
Owner transferred. Yeah. Smart contract.
Event. Yeah. What if you click that?
Oh. So this is still in beta. So some of the features aren't quite implemented yet.
Yeah, because that would be really interesting. Because yeah, definitely seeing the function like that was called is interesting, but seeing the actual parameters are passed, right? Because a lot of times that will tell you what exactly like was passed to execute that function.
Right, and you can take this smart contract transaction hash and come back to BSC scan and paste that in, and there we go. So then we can see that specific transaction. We can click here to see more, and then we can see the actual input data, right? So if you wanted to take, and this is typically I'll use more than one tool, right? If I'm looking at some transaction paths, you're going to use swap back and forth between what's relevant for what you're doing. So let's go back here to. Yep, so 7.9, this is the contract. So, and then it shows you the transaction. So transfer from all probably is the big one there, and we could go into that. Pull that up in another tab. I think events. Yeah, so then you could go and see. I'm not sure what references is for.
Addresses used in events. In methods and parameters.
Oh, addresses used.
Oh, methods parameters. Huh.
Yeah. So that's why this might take a little bit more time to load, because it's actually going to load what we were looking at here, I believe. So I'll let that one load. But over here, I'm going to do the money flow. So with money flow, we've got two views here. We have graph and sand key. Sand key is kind of like a directional graph. The graph just kind of shows you here, and you can drag it. You can say, all right, what 5,000 BNB went to this address. You could right click that and it'll open that address up in another tab. So that's pretty cool.
Sweet. And you can make it look like a squid from the Matrix if you drag it over.
So the cool thing here, though, is if we switch to sand key, we can actually see the flow of the funds. So we can see the wrapped BNB, 73,000 BNB to wrap BNB that came to this address, and then we can see how it got split up. At some point, they paid themselves back. I don't know why there's a loop on that one, but apparently they're like, well, maybe I just need to resend myself some funds. I'm not quite sure, but
does the gray line in the middle represent anything? Is that just like the middle transaction from the depth level?
Which one?
The gray line that's going.
Oh,
to
this.
yeah.
This is the the gray. It just represents this address. So the current wallet we're looking at, clicked on it, is this address. So if we go back to address, it's this one.
Gotcha.
It's the address we're on. You can change the inbound. So where did the funds come from? Right, and if they stopped here, this is probably an exchange or a mint. We can go to the outbound. Where did the funds go? And this is the really fun part to kind of see. Did they go to a tumbler? Did they go to a swap exchange or something like that? And
look at that loop at the bottom. The orange one at the very bottom. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mentioned that a minute ago. This is where they sent, you can see two transactions, one of 23,000 and one of 23,000 back to the 7.9 address, right? So this might have been a swap, currency BNB, address by balance currency, smart contract calls. And what was called here? Transfers. So yeah, transferring, I guess that's just transferring from this account back to this account. Why? I'm not sure what's still in this.
Maybe they're paying some back, you know.
It's possible, but I don't see any backflow from here.
Oh, that okay, gotcha, yeah.
So we can see that some of it was eventually deposited back into iBNB or interest-bearing BNB. You can see these addresses, though they may have been shuffled and split, they all come back to here, which I'm not sure which one this is. And we might be able to do some research on that. That
looks like one of the initialization contracts or whatever.
And maybe BSC scan will tell us exactly what that is.
Maybe they're just confirming they could send transactions.
System
like if
contract.
they were doing it with like a token theft or something, maybe they're just making sure they could submit something.
Yeah, no. So there's like specific contracts that all start out with like long strings of zeros like that. And so like actually the thing that happened with Ethereum, the Geeth vulnerability, the attacker was sending the exploit to the actual, like, it's like, you know, zeros all the way out to 4, right? Where you have 4 in the end. Yeah. So that was a contract address.
Yeah, and that's what this is. It looks like, so BSC Token Hub. So it looks like this person transferred 48,000 BNB probably back to Binance to the main chain. So that's why we lose sight of it here. Let's see if we go one more. Yeah. So that's the ending for Smart Chain. So it exited the chain from here, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if from here, no, we can't see that on here. We might have to correlate a transaction with, I'm not going to load that, with another chain, right? With the BNB chain or the Binance token. Because this was BNB. And you can also come down here and switch to what other tokens were in the wallet. So let's go to USD, BUSD, and see where that went. Oh, different path, right? Some addresses are still sitting there. Some came, I guess you could probably redraw this somewhere else, but I'm not sure what. This is probably a token swap or an exchange. So it's unlabeled, but it is an external swap service. It looks like Pancake Swap Router, BSC Token Hub. Sure. So same thing, swapping out of the network some way or form into interest-bearing BUSD. So just interesting tool to combine with BSC scan, and we're running out of time here. So interesting tool to combine with the other tools in your tool belt. If you go to, I think, start.blockchainhacks.com, I think Bo can mention some of that. Pretty cool site to get started. We also have a webinar, I think, that you can go back and look. Maybe Bo, if you want to talk about that, to where they can get some information on starting some of this stuff.
Yeah, so I did a webcast yesterday. The recording isn't up yet, but hopefully next week that'll be up. Maybe next Friday I'll go through the blockchain hacks quick start guide that should kind of walk through that process of getting set up with a lot of the tools that we would use to go and analyze smart contracts. But yeah, so Ryan says that the video should be posted today. So if you're listening to this on September 10th, the webcast that I did yesterday should be posted today. We'll definitely tweet that out whenever it's up. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks Steve for the demo. That was awesome. BitQuery looks really cool. Is there an API that's free, right? Like that tool's free?
Yeah, and they have an API you can query, and it spits out JSONs or whatever format I think you want. So it's pretty robust.
Awesome, very cool. And Corey, thanks so much for hanging out. I saw you kind of popping in and out there. Are you losing connectivity?
My internet doesn't want me to love crypto as much as I do.
Oh, awesome. Well, and Ryan, thanks so much for running the show for us on the backside. And guys, if you want to check out the show notes, we have all the links to everything we talked about through the show on CoinSecPodcast.com. You can see all the stuff we talked about. We have little like extra notes in there too, to dialogue or whatever around. So check out CoinSecPodcast.com. Go follow us on Twitter, and subscribe on YouTube, and we'll catch you next week.
Cool.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone.